Indexing. What is indexing? My husband just said an answer, but he didn't say it very loud.
Facilitating research.
He says it facilitates research. It certainly does. Our answer, Diane?
Sorry, I need to view myself. I said they all go to the celestial kingdom.
That's what you said in the advertisement. Okay, and why? Because we're making records available that weren't available before. And therefore their temple work can be done. In most of the countries, our ancestors left a paper trail about their lives, and their paper trail will give us, hopefully, enough information to know enough about them to have temple work done. So we want to look up that paper trail. How do we look it up? One of the records that we use the most in the United States is the census. And one of the things that I did years and years ago when I was first starting research is I went to the library in Provo and I ordered a census record that I thought Hugh Michael would be in. I could tell by what information I did know about him that he was in Adair County, and I forget which year that I looked first. It was probably 1880, maybe 1860 or 70. And so I chose which year it was, and I was lucky enough that county had their census in microfilmed. And in those days, there were lots of records that hadn't yet been microfilmed. Nowadays, we're very blessed. Huge amounts have been microfilmed. So I ordered the microfilm and I paid for it, and I waited 2 weeks and it came. And then after it came, I put it on the microfilm machine and I turned the crank page by page until I found his name and found his family, and it listed his wife and his children and how old they were. And it was wonderful to know it, but it was a whole lot of work to do that. Nowadays, things are so much easier because they have been digitized. So the records have been digitized. Then someone through the church's indexing program went through and made a computer searchable index. So now if I want to look up Hugh Michael on the census, I just say census Hugh Michael and it shows up. That's what we're helping to do, is make an index of all of these records. Now, what records can you think of that our ancestors would be in besides the census? Give me some names.
Shipping, when they came over with what boat? For sure.
So they're immigration records. They're of what boat they came on, and that will also tell us which port they landed in or which border they crossed, and give us information. Diane is going to teach a class on Zoom about immigration records next month.
That might be October. September I want to do.
Okay.
I want to take that.
Oh, good.
Oh,
In September, it's going to be.
Descendants.
It's going to be what?
Descendants.
Census? Oh, good.
Descendants.
Descendancy research.
Yeah.
Oh, that is such an important thing in today's world. Charles, do you want to watch it on your own computer, or do you want to watch it on mine?
I was hoping to see it on, but if I have to watch it.
Well, you have to get the code off your email.
That means I have to sit next to my wife.
Okay. Immigration records. What other records?
Church records. Like today, I was just looking at Swedish church records have been indexed.
And what do people tell the church? When they have a baby, when they get married, when they die?
Well, plus they have in Sweden, they have what they call husförhörslang. It's a household record that the minister keeps, and it's like an ongoing census. He has their names, exact birth dates, when they leave, when they move in, when they get married, when they die, crosses them out. You always want to have Swedish ancestors.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Alice, can you think of any records that people would be in that you've looked in?
Marriage and death certificates.
Marriage, birth, marriage, and death certificates. Now, we used to have to be real students, and we used to have to say, well, in such and such a state, people went to the county to get their marriage license, but they went to the church to get their birth records, or they were born before 1900, so there were no birth records, 1907, and yet we had to know all of that. Nowadays, we just kind of have to have a hint, and if we're looking for a birth record, we can't find it, then we might look up why we can't find it. But generally speaking, we're just going to look for birth certificates in that time frame and in that place. So indexing goes through many of these records and makes the searchable index. The church has decided, and other companies like MyHeritage and Ancestry follow similar procedures, and they say, what record is going to benefit the most people first? And that's the record they indexed first. And we're getting now to where a lot of the basics have already been done. Now they're starting to do some of the less basic things, which is wonderful. Today we're going to start by looking up a marriage record in Mississippi. Now, there's two ways to teach indexing. One way is to make you learn all of the rules first, or one is you jump in and learn the rules that apply to where you jumped in, and then when you start to feel comfortable, then you go back and read all the rules. And that's going to be the approach that we're going to take today. So now I'm going to share my screen, and I think that's going to put the people off to the pictures of you off to the side. And that way I can still see you. It also means that there will be part of the screen that you won't be able to see. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I need to open up to what I want you to see. And in fact, it looks like I need to get back to the beginning. There are two ways to get into indexing, two ways that I know about. There's probably more. One is you go to the website called thechurchofjesuschrist.org, and then on the search bar, you type in indexing, and then it gives you an option of several things, and you choose web indexing. I think that's the slow way. The way that I'm going to recommend that you do it is to go to the family history website, family search. And when you get to family search, go ahead and log in. And after you have logged in, over here by the family search logo on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of words. Most of our recording we do under family tree, but we're going to choose the tab that says indexing. And under indexing, it gives us several options. The first option is overview. And that tells you about what I've already told you. The next one is web indexing. The next one is find a project, and then last of all, help center. If we were going to do a really long lesson tonight, we would go to help center and we would choose the option that says take a tour, a guided tour. And the guided tour would do the same thing that I'm going to do, only I'm going to do it with the state of Mississippi marriage records instead of whatever you do under help center. I am going to suggest that usually you don't choose find a project. I'm going to suggest that you start out at web indexing. Now, what is web indexing? Web indexing means that, and it's the only kind they have anymore. Web indexing means that you do it through the internet instead of using the internet to download a batch and then do the batch without the internet. And there's a lot of advantages now to having it all on the internet. So I'm going to suggest that you choose web indexing. And when you choose web indexing and you have already signed into Family Search, the screen opens up and this is kind of what it looks like. And it gives you some options down here. It's going to give you a graph showing how much indexing you've done lately. And then it's going to have the main thing here, it's going to have those my batches. When you request to do indexing, they give it to you for a week. And you do as much as you can do in the week. And if you don't get it all done, then you don't worry about it. They'll take it and give it to somebody else. That way we can do what fits in our life. And if it ends up that if something doesn't fit in our life this time, we're okay. So the first thing we need to do is choose the batch that we want to do. So we go to the blue button and we choose Find Batches. Now, the reason I like to do this way of coming to find batches instead of going through the other button that said Find a Batch is this screen tells us which are beginning ones, which are intermediate ones, and which are advanced ones. And so I chose beginning ones, and I chose that I wanted the English language. Now, the other route gives us a map, and you click on the map depending on which part you want. But I like this, and I suggest that we start out doing something that's beginning level. Whenever I haven't done indexing for a while, I do beginning level to get in gear again. So I suggest that we choose something in beginning level. So I clicked on the beginning button. I could have clicked on the intermediate button, and I would have gotten different batches. But I'm going to suggest that we start out, I'm going to unclick intermediate, and I'm going to go to beginning. And so in preparation for this lesson, I did Mississippi marriages. Marriages were usually kept on the county level. That's why it says county marriages. And if you look at this, it will tell you that English, this is an English language batch that's a beginning level. And it looks, you can see the yellow line, you can see that a whole lot has already been done. 73% of the project has already been done. And then I can choose whether I'm going to index it or whether I'm going to review it. And to start out, you do indexing. What is reviewing? It used to be that they had two people index the same batch, and then the computer analyzed to see if they got the exact same answers. And then anytime they didn't get the exact same answers, a third person had to go through and figure out what should have been the right answers. And nowadays, instead of having 3 people do it, they just have it 2. And the second person, as they get ready to index it, they're watching what the first person already did, and they only have to type in what's different. And so they need to be experienced to make sure that they're catching any mistakes. So that's called reviewing. And you can only review it if you have already indexed 1,000 names. So that way you pretty well have learned what to do. And then they do have a little training thing they want you to do before you start reviewing. But you start out with just indexing. It's kind of interesting for me to see what percent has already been done. So for example, there was one of these as I went through and looked at it, and it was already 98% done. Well, I don't want to do one that's 98% done because I think it's smart that when I get started, I choose the same one over and over and over again, because then I get familiar with the kind of records they have and all of that. So let's choose U.S. Mississippi County Marriages. So we're going to click on the word index. And it's going to take a minute, and then it's going to show up on my screen. And now I'm ready to begin. After we've done an entry, we're going to talk about all of these icons that are here at the top. And I'm going to tell you now about project instructions. If we click on project instructions, over here on the side are the rules about Mississippi marriages. And it's going to tell us what we need to know about Mississippi marriages. And it will be good for us to read those. So after this lesson is over and you do your own batch of Mississippi marriages, then you're going to want to read more of this. One of the most important parts about this is if you go down just a little bit, is this little blue thing, how to index a marriage record. And if we click on that, it's going to show us what a marriage record might look like. And it's going to have drawn out in red lines how to find the important parts of the record. And so that's a good thing to look at, and it will help us. For example, it says Number 6 is up here at the top, but it's also down here at the bottom. And so that is a good thing to look at before we get started. Now, we're not going to go over that right now, but I want you to know about that. It's also sometimes the marriage records come in different forms. Sometimes it's just the application for the license. Sometimes it's the marriage certificate. Sometimes it's different. It looks like in Mississippi that in some of the years they had a white marriage record and a colored marriage record. So we would be able to click on, if our marriage record was a white marriage record or a colored marriage record, we could click on that and it would help us understand the differences so that we could make sure we knew what we needed to know. So we can look at those. And when I first did my first Mississippi marriage record, I read through it. But I want us to more jump in tonight and see what it's actually like. And when you do it yourself, do that, read that. The first thing you do is you look at all of the different records that you have. And how do you know the images that you have? And how do you know what images you have? Down here at the bottom, and in this case there's 5 images. That means that the microfilm copy or digitized copy of the 5 pages that they did and put in this batch. Now sometimes, as you look at it to kind of get acquainted, to do that I'm going to click on this plus button. I can see that there's just 1 marriage per page on this page. But maybe there would have been 5. Maybe they wrote them in a briefer form and there would be 5 marriages on the page. So you need to look at that and know how many marriages you're going to find on each of these pages. So in this case, I'm only going to find 1 apiece. Now, if I want to know what the first step is on this thing to do, I see a little purple question mark over here at the side. You see the little purple question mark? Alice? Do you? Okay. Alice, your microphone is muted and Diane, yours is muted. I think that I want this to be interactive enough that you can unmute and that way if you have a question, you can ask me. So if I want to know if this image should be indexed, I click on the purple question mark and it gives me the answer. It says, read the project instructions, but it says, if this image shows the type of records indexed in this project, leave the answer as yes. Well, it does. It's a marriage license, and it's one of the ones. So I leave it as yes. And that applies to this first image down here that has a blue square around it. Now, if I click on the blue square that says next image, it's going to put a blue square around a different picture, and it's going to ask me the same question. Should this image be indexed? Yes. When it wouldn't be indexed is if it was blank, or if it had letters crossed out, or if it was a microfilm copy of the front page of the book, or something like that. But this is indeed a marriage record. So I click next. Now it asks me the same question about image number 3. Yes. Ask me the same question about image number 4. Does it have somebody in it? No, it's blank. So I'm going to click it to no. And it gives me 2 choices under no. I can either say I don't want to index it because it's nothing on here that's worth indexing, or else maybe it's a copy, maybe the microfilmer or the photographer made 2 copies of the same page. Then I'd choose no. Then I'd choose no duplicate image, but this time I'm choosing no extractable data. Okay, now I go to the next image. And it does have a marriage record on it. Okay, so I click yes. Okay, and then when I click next again, it takes me back and puts the blue line around the first page. So this is the first marriage license. And you see I'm holding my mouse button down and sliding my mouse down so that I can see the top of the page. It looks like it's page 56. So I'm going to move it up so that I can see the information that's here on page 56. And if I want to look at it more clearly, I can push the arrow key and then I can see it bigger. Beginners or teenagers do best to start on a record, if possible, that is typewritten instead of handwritten. Especially teenagers today, they think they don't know how to read cursive. So they don't have to learn something new at the beginning. They should do something that is written out. Now, here is on this very, oh, what page did I say it was? Did I say page 56?
51, I thought. 56.
Okay, so certificate number. And if we read about certificate number, it says that a page number will work. So that's what we'll do, is we'll put in page 56. And in a minute, we're going to find something interesting, and we're going to have to figure it out. And I didn't know that this was one that had this problem. So we'll see it and we'll decide what to do in a minute. Now, to get from one field to the next field, you can either hit enter or you can hit tab. So I hit tab. Marriage day. This first section is the application for the marriage license. But I think if I go down further, I'm going to find the part that the minister filled in the day that he did the marriage. Ah, I do. Down here it says that the certificate of marriage. So the minister was W.C. Janice. And so he says, I have this day celebrated the rites of matrimony between Amos Murray Jr. and Aretta Bowler. And he says that he did this on the 9th of August. So the marriage day would be 9. You type in 9, then a tab. For the month, you type in the first 3 letters of the month. And you do not have to use any capitals. I did not use any capitals, but look what happens when I push enter. It goes to capital letter. Now, there are some months that start with the same letter. March and May start with the same letter, and June and July start with the same letter. So that's why they made the rule you type the first 3 letters. Okay, marriage year, 1944. Okay, marriage place. Now he says he did this marriage in Pascagoula, Pascagoula. Now we know if we look up to the top that this is Jackson County, Missouri, Mississippi, and we put places one at a time with a comma between them, starting with the smallest place that's told about. Now, if she didn't say that she was the justice of the peace in Pascagoula, Mississippi, then I would just put Jackson, Mississippi, since Jackson would be the county. But she said that she is in Jackson County, so I put it all. Then I'm going to push given names. Now, it says that to get the marriage license, the people that came to apply for the marriage license, the person that came to apply for the marriage license was Amos Murray Jr. So his first name was what? Answer me. Amos. Okay. What is his last name?
Murray.
Murray. Okay. What is Junior? If it had given us a space to put a title or a suffix or something, then we would write in Junior, but it did not. But Junior is not his last name. I don't think Junior is his last name. Do you think Junior is his last name? No. No, I wouldn't. Race. Now this is a tricky one in this case. And Oh, wait, look, he gave us a lot of information up here when he applied for the marriage license. We're going to need to go back through this and make sure we've got it all. He says that his color is colored, that his race is American. So something else we need to know is over here, there is a star by race. That means we always have to fill in something in that square. And if we don't have anything else to put in, then we either put in blank or unknown. And we'll talk about that maybe later. So what is his race? Is his race colored or is his race American? Let's look up here, and it says, use unknown from the drop-down list only if the race is specifically recorded as being unknown. If the race recorded is not in the drop-down list, then type what you see. Many of the registers list the race for the bride and the groom in the same column. If the race or color was not recorded, press Control B. Since we have in our form both colored and race, and I have already tried to type in American and it didn't accept American. It would accept American Indian or American Native or lots of other Americans, but it wouldn't accept just plain American. So I'm going to click in colored. Okay, Charles wants me to show you this. This is the down arrow of all of the options. Well, I'm going to choose colored. I think that the rule is you always type what you see, but I think that knowing a little bit about the history of Mississippi, that even though it says colored, that it means color means colored, not, and I don't think race means American. I think, do you agree with me? Is that what you'd put? Yeah. Okay. Birth year of Amos. Let's see. It says that Amos was born on August 19th, 1922. So it wants his birth year only, so we type 1922. It didn't ask for the whole birthday. Now, when somebody finds this record, because it's been indexed and they can find it, it will tell them his exact birth date, which will please them. Then it says, how old was he? He's 21 years old. Okay, now his sex. Does it in any place tell us what his sex is? If it said Mr., then we would know that he was a male. But it does not tell us any place that he is a male. Okay, Charles says, what about if you can tell by the word groom? It says, or you can tell what it was from relationship terms. I think that groom is a relationship term, don't you?
No.
Okay, so let's put down that he's a male. Again, I just typed the letter M and it put it in for me. Or it would have given me the drop-down menu and I could have chosen it. What is the groom's father's given name? Amos.
Oh, no, that's hers. His is the senior. Amos.
Yes. Father's surname. Murray. Now, if it had a column for a prefix, then we could write in Mr., or if it had if it gave us a title or anything else, we could put a senior, but it doesn't. So we won't leave this, we won't put in the senior. Now, his mother's prefix. Does it tell us that anything about who his mother is? Mrs. or Ms. or Miss or anything? It doesn't. So, but it has a star by it, so we have to put in something. So we can put in blank. There's two ways to put in blank. One way is to push down the control button and push B.
Are you talking about Amos's mother?
We're talking about Amos's mother.
Yeah.
Lisa
Right.
Patterson?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
So, but it didn't say Mrs. Lizard.
Oh, I get it.
Now, we also could have gone to this square up here and pushed it down, and it says, mark the field blank. So we had our option of either clicking on that Band-Aid with the X in the middle and saying, and it would type in Control B, or we could type in Control button and B. On a Mac, it's probably not Control, it's probably another word that it's got. Mother's given name is Lizzie. Now, Patterson is going to be listed as her part of her given names. And Murray is going to be her last name. And I could either choose the drop-down menu because it gave me the option. And if I wanted to know for sure if that's what it wanted me to do, then I can click on the purple question mark and it's going to give me the information on how to do that. The spouse's given name. So now we're at the bride. What is the bride's middle name?
Patterson.
Given name.
Oh, Lizzie.
No, that's Amos's mother's name.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
If we look at it, okay. So I misspelled Arletta, didn't I? A-R-L-E-T-T-A. Okay, and her last name is Bolar. Okay. And it tells us that she was born in 1920, that she is now 24 years old. Now, I have a question. I'm just going to look because I'm thinking. It says that Amos was 21 and that she's 24. I'm going to go back up and make sure I put down Amos as 21. I did. Okay. And it's going to say that does it say that she's the groom? I mean, that she's the bride? No, it does not. Yes, it does say bride. So we know that she's a female. And for her race, we're again going to put colored. And did you notice that I just typed the first two letters and it went through the list of possibles and picked up colored? So I can push enter. I don't have to type in the whole thing. The spouse's father's given name, Eli Bowler. Eli on one line, Bolar on the next line. The spouse's mother's prefix. Does it give us a prefix for her? It doesn't. Otherwise, it might have said Mrs. or Miss. So her name is Beatrice Hayes. And her last name is Bowler. No. I put them in the wrong list and you didn't correct me. The mother's prefix is
Not
blank. The mother's given name is
Beatrice Hayes.
and it usually automatically capitalizes it, but it didn't in that case. Okay, and now,
Hayes is not her middle name. Hayes is her maiden name.
okay, let's read what it says to do about maiden names.
That's her surname. Bolar is her married name, not her, oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Bolar is her married name and Hayes is her maiden name. Maiden name should be typed in this field before maiden surnames. So for help in finding out the mother's surname, when I clicked on the purple arrow, it says, and so this is an instruction that I needed to learn the first time I faced it, of what do you do when the mother, both her maiden name and her married name are both listed. And it says, maiden surnames maiden surnames should be typed in this field before married surnames. Okay, I was wrong. It says do. So I should have typed this as
Hayes.
Hayes Bowler.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means I did the husband's name wrong too, doesn't it? Her name, Patterson,
Oh, should have been Patterson Mary. Murray.
right. Now, what would have happened if I wouldn't have found that and corrected it? The reviewer would have found it and corrected it. So we follow the rules and we change when we need to, but we don't panic about what if something is wrong. Now I'm at the very bottom. So now I go up to the top and I look and I see I have finished image number 1 of the 5 images here at the bottom. I finished number 1, except it says entry. It says there's 4 entries. Now on this page, are there 3 more weddings? No. So, but on the entries on image 1, there's no more page for any other brides and grooms. So I go ahead and click the arrow and it takes me to image number 2. Now I come up to the trash can. And at the trash can it says, how many entries do you want to delete? I want to delete all of the blank entries
Not
on.
the next 4 pages, they don't count then? Are
They
they
are this is what I better clarify. Images are the 4 things at the bottom. Entries are if that page has more than 1 wedding. So that page only had 1 bride and 1 groom. So I want to delete the blank. I want to delete the information that it wants me to fill out for brides and grooms that aren't there. So I click delete all blank entries and then I do delete. And so now it says up here, it says entry 1 of 1. On image 1, there's entry 1 of 1. There's only 1 wedding. Okay, so now let's go to the bottom and see if it tells me to go to the next page. Yes, it says if you don't see any more information on this page to index, then go to the next image. So when I click next image, it's going to move this blue square around the second image down here at the bottom. So now I know that I'm doing the second page. And if I unenlarge this, then I can look and I can see what the whole page looks like. And I can see that there's just going to be 1 wedding on here and that it's going to be page. I'm going to have to enlarge it again so that I can see what page it is. It's page 57.
I can't read it.
Okay, I enlarged until I could read it, and it's 57. Okay, so marriage certificate number 57. Okay, now I go back down here. Now you see at first it's telling all of the information about that they told him what they went to get the license. But then as we go further down, we're going to see again, here's the marriage license, more marriage license information, but here's from the person that actually did the marriage. And in this case, it's going to be J.B. Campbell, minister of the Methodist Church in Moss Point, Mississippi. Okay, so the marriage day. Now up here is the marriage license day. It tells that they went to get the marriage license on August 9th. And down here on the certificate, it says they got married August 9th. But they sometimes don't get married on the same day they get the license. I didn't get married on the same day I got my license. I got married the day after. Same situation. So if we were to read all of this purple arrow, it would tell us if it gives the day of the wedding, that's the day you put in. If it puts the day that they got the license, but not the day they got married, then that's the day you put in. If it doesn't give the day they got the license or the day they got married, but it does tell you the day that the Methodist turned it into the court to the county clerk, then that's the day you put. And that's what it would tell us. If we click on this arrow, it would give us that information. It would also give us that information if we were to read the project instructions. Now, what if we've forgotten what the project instructions said, or we want to read them? We can come up to these icons across the top, and if we click on this icon right here, it's going to tell us all the project instructions again. Okay, so marriage day, the day they actually got married, is what? The 9th of August. What year? Can you read it?
44.
44. And it says that they got married at Moss Point, Mississippi. And it doesn't tell us for positive that Moss Point is in Jackson County. So I'm going to leave that out. Let's see what it says. It says, do not correct misspellings or expand abbreviations. If the marriage place was not recorded, index the license place. It says we can put in commas between them, but we don't have to. Okay, given names. Cornelius Spencer. How do you spell Cornelius? C-O-R-N-E-A-L-I-U-S. Spencer. Now, if we were to read the instructions, it would tell us that we should look at every place where his name is and use the one that's most correct. So for example, if it had said that his name was C. Spencer, but then down at the bottom it says Cornelius, then we'd type in Cornelius. If it had that his name was W.M. Spencer, but down here he signed it as William, then we'd put in William. Now I did an interesting one the other day that it said at the top that his name was Elijah something, and down on the bottom he signed it, and he signed it as Israel. So I put Elijah or Israel because that's what it told me to do when I looked on this little purple square. Okay, his race, we're choosing colored. His birth year,
1915.
1915. And his age is 38. I think I should hit tab before I push 38. Okay, and it says that he's the groom. Now that, see, it was the advantage of this being the second one we did, is we learned how to find groom. And that's kind of an example of why I like to do, if I'm doing Mississippi marriages, I like to do a lot of Mississippi marriages instead of one day do Mississippi marriages and the next day do Fiji records and the next day do something else. The father's given name is Charlie Spencer. And look, it gave me an option in blue that I could choose Spencer. The mother's prefix doesn't have one, but it lists her first name as Kate and her surname, whoops.
No,
I did that before, didn't I?
blank.
Yes, Control B. Mother's given name is Kate. Surname is, and what would we learn to do? Bounds Spencer. Bounds Spencer. Spouse's given name.
It's pound.
What?
Oh, it's B, yeah. I just thought it said pound instead.
Oh, okay. Well, good. If I would have been wrong, you would have corrected me. The spouse's given name is Daisy. And her middle name is Lou. Don't forget the U. Tucker. Her birth year is 1920. She is
23.
23. In that case, don't you kind of wonder if she's been married before?
23?
She's 23 and he's 38.
Oh, you mean he's been married?
Maybe so. And in some cases, it would say something to tell us that. It is not this time. Spouse's sex is she's a bride, so she's female. Her race, her father's given name, that's an unusual name.
Nancy, are you going to put colored or just COL? It
I
didn't.
typed in colored and expected it to finish it. Okay, now it's there. Thank you. Tucker, her mother's father's surname. Okay, back down. Spouse's mother's prefix. Now this time, see, I can go up here to the X, which is going to say, it put in blank for me. The mother's given name is Mamie Moore. Nope. Moore Tucker. Okay. Do I see any more information on this page that needs to be indexed? On this image, do I see any more weddings? No. So I'm going to say, if I was another wedding there, I'd say create entry, but there's not. So I say go to the next image. Now, if I had already done all 5 images, the next thing I would do is I would go over here and what would give me at the bottom, it would automatically give me a little thing down here that says, are you ready to do check, a quality check? And then it would open up this. Now it says that I have made 56 times did I not fill in a required field. Now, I still have 3 more pages to do, no wonder. But if I had filled in all of the fields and it didn't, and the computer did not sense that I had made any mistakes, then it would say accept. It would say no issues remaining, and I could say accept. Since there are issues remaining, every place on these entries that it has this kind of a mark, that is something that I should have typed in that I didn't, or that it thinks I did wrong. So for example, if on the sex I had typed September, then it would say, please check this and see if you really typed what you wanted to type. So I will go through these things and mark and find all the ones that have one of these icons and check them. When that is all done, then I click accept, and then they drop confetti on the screen and tell me that I'm done. Now, that was only 5 weddings in one batch. Back in the day when I was doing a lot of indexing, every morning after breakfast, I would fix myself a cup of hot chocolate and I would sit down and I would index a batch. That was particularly during when the 1940 census was being indexed. And I just wanted to help get it indexed as fast as possible. So I did at least one page of the census a day. There are some things that happen to us when we do indexing. When we do the Lord's work, He blesses us. We feel His Spirit more. We feel His guidance more. It is remarkable to me that those blessings come when we do indexing. Indexing can be done by members of the church and by non-members of the church. Everybody that does the Lord's work gets those blessings. I have heard stories about people who, for example, had been excommunicated and wanted to come back to the church. And they went to see their bishop and they said, you know, if I could just have a church calling. And the bishop says, do indexing, do a batch of indexing every day. When you do that, the Lord's Spirit is more with you. It just is amazing. Now, I was going to say that at the end. Instead, I said it now. Let's talk for a minute about these icons in this row across here. Whoops. I guess I have to go back to Mississippi marriages. And I don't know which batch of Mississippi marriages I was working on. Might be this batch, might not be. It's not. Anyway, this is the check it, the quality check button. This is the okay, the quality check's finished, I'm going to submit it button. If you want to mark something as blank, you can either hit this one or else you can do the control at the same time you do the B. If you can read part of that word, but you can't, there's a letter that you can't read, then you can do this, oh, I'm wrong. That if it's there but you can't read it, you do this one with a question mark. Sometimes you want to add an entry, like maybe there were 2 marriages listed here and it only listed 1 and you want to add 1, then you would use that one. If there's an entry that it doesn't exist, it's all blank, then you use this one. Use this one if you want to copy something exactly from before. For example, if they were all Hardin County all the way through, we could, or Pascagoula, Mississippi all the way through, we could use that one. This is if we want to copy some of it. I find that these 2 buttons that I'm better off to just type. Some people might be coordinated enough to use those. If we want handwriting help, we click on that one and we get examples of the way that people in this time period made these letters. Sometimes we might want somebody to help us do this batch, and we would use that icon to do that. Here is international characters, and here are the project instructions for the whole project. So we have walked through one batch. When you're ready to start it, do you know how to start? Do you know how to find a batch to start?
Right up here. Well, I'm not. Right by family tree logo, it's the batch.
Right. Okay. Do you think you could index a batch of Mississippi marriage records? Do you think you could finish it? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you will find after you've done a couple of batches that you get better at it. And then you might want to try a harder one. Then you might want to try a different place's marriage records. Then you might want to try a different record. But as I already said before, I advise to start with beginning, and then after you're more comfortable with beginning, go to intermediate. And then if you want to be a reviewer after you've done 1,000, then you can read the instructions and kind of take the class and be ready to be a reviewer. You might know Charles's mission. Do you know what, Alice, do you know what Charles does on his mission? They
He
do
does
all of the things
obituaries.
that are necessary to get a batch ready for people to do. And then after all the batches have been done and reviewed, then they do what they have to be done, what has to be done before they are searchable on Family Search. And Charles does an awfully lot of reviewing of batches of records that are almost finished, like when they get a record set that's 99% finished or 98% finished, then people on Charles's mission, a lot of them will work on finishing that one so that it can be published. Charles has not done a whole lot of the other tasks. He mostly has done reading historical records to find what's indexable and making batches, and then reviewing batches. Those have been the 2 things that he's done the most. What other questions do you have, or what other comments do you have?
Oh, I don't have anything to say.
Well, I hope that you do some indexing, but I hope you also do some quilting, Charles.
I'm waiting on that pattern, Nancy. I'm kind of,
Okay, I mailed it Monday. Diane, we have a family tradition that the aunts make a quilt for all of the nieces and nephews' weddings. So we have a wedding coming up in September, and we couldn't get together to make it because of COVID. So I made the top, and Alice is doing all of the hand quilting. And she doesn't, the groom's, our nephew's brother designed the quilt. So he also designed the quilting pattern. So Alice has started quilting without the quilting pattern, just by the diagram he put on Facebook or on the text. So we're anxious for the pattern to arrive so that she's mostly quilting what he's designed. But the wedding's in September, so we have a little bit.
we have time.
Charles has comments.
I want to comment, while you're indexing, I find it interesting how often I'll get the feeling, hey, did I do that right? And I'll go back a name or two because something in there just doesn't feel right. And I'll go back and find out that maybe I did something wrong. And it's just a matter of comparing. And I figure I typed wrong, but it's interesting how often I'm told that I've done something wrong and I have to go back. So listen to the spirit while you're working.
Absolutely. That is more important than what I just thought of saying. Anytime you can't
I'm
read
researching
something,
too.
what?
That happens when I'm researching too. I'll just
Diane, I can't hear you.
Oh, there's something wrong with my speaker because my boss can't hear me either. Can you hear me at all now?
Yeah, now, yes.
I was saying that happens to me when I'm researching too. I'll feel that I did something wrong and go back and find it.
And I've heard the same exact thing from people who enter the temple work into the final completed record. They'll have a stack of cards and they just don't feel easy about it. And they go through the stack of cards again and find one more, and that kind of thing. The Lord, this is not frivolous stuff that we're doing. It is eternal stuff. And the Lord wants it done right and inspires us. One of the best ways to read handwriting is to look at other places in the record where the same letter is. So there was one today I couldn't read the letters, and so I looked to see, oh, this is an M because in another word that's how he made his M's. And that is a U, that is how he made his U's in another word. So that is the best way to figure out letters that you can't figure out.
When I first saw that Amos, I thought it was Amor. I thought, oh, that's an unusual name, but it was Amos. I just hadn't
Oh,
recognized
okay,
it.
yeah. And that kind of thing. And some people are afraid that they're not going to get it perfect, and so they don't want to start, or else they have a question and they don't know what to do because they have a question. And so you read the purple arrows and you read the project instructions. But if you still have a question, put down what you think and then submit it, and then see if the reviewer can't figure it out when the reviewer reviews it. So, we don't have to feel like that we can't start it until we're perfect. And that's why I think that one of the first things that they do, if you do, when you go, when you choose indexing and you choose Help Center, and it gives you the guided tour, that's one of their ideas, I think, is that once you get started, then you kind of see how it fits together and you get over some of your uncertainty about being able to do it. Okay, time for closing prayer.